Yo, what is up, everybody? Mario Mungia here from Soup or Mario podcast. Um, yeah, listen, this is kind of an impromptu show. Popping up like we should at this time in the year. We are 32 days out from the election. And listen, I never wanted this to be a political show. I still don't. I don't think that it is. I feel like I won't do much of this after the election, but it's very important. I'm not going to pretend like it's not, and it's on every single person's mind. And there are so many different facets of the political sphere that are bleeding into everyday commercial lives and citizens that typically are too busy at work, with the kids, to really truly pay attention to what the people who are supposed to be looking out for our best interests are actually doing. And there's so much history, there's so much to account for. And if I can only do one thing, if this channel only does one thing from now until November, all I hope is that it's a place for non-judgment and people who want to express their political views. I have mine. Um, I don't, re- I don't think of myself as a Democrat. I don't think of myself as a Republican. Not because I don't think so, because I don't think other people do. So I just want to say that for anybody that wants to call in later. Listen, we are with King Amin of Essex from the championship rounds. He has come through to bless us with that knowledge shit that he's been doing for the better part of a decade now on places like the Boxing Voice and others. And now he's got his channel, his brand, and it's growing, it's blowing up. I mean, thank you so much, first of all, for just rocking with me after how incredible your run has been over the last really few years, but several months. It's been popping, huh?
Well, this isn't my first rodeo with Mr. Mario Mungia. We got lots of great history, brother. You know that already. And yeah, the championship rounds is a fledgling venture that I've been pioneering for many, many years now. And I say that because not only is it a place for a little bit more mature discussion of boxing, it is the home of women's boxing. That is a MF in fact. So that being said, Mario, like the politics in boxing, there's politics in all facets, and I think this national election has brought us to a place to where we have to be informed, and we're encouraged to inform others because we just don't want anybody running out here half cocked and unprepared for what may
Hell
or may
yeah.
not go down, right?
Well said, well said. Listen, I hit you up. This all started, right? Um, because I hit you up with the question, and we had a short conversation on iMessage, that entailed some text and some voice memos and stuff. And you said some stuff that really just kind of fucked with me, to be honest with you. Things that I'd never really considered. And look, where I grew up, it was mostly Hispanic, right? But we weren't affluent, right? We didn't have a lot of money. And so at some point I was friends with poor white people. At some point I was friends with poor black people, and I have my own ideas based on my experience in terms of how race and politics, works. But I stand here today, today, seeing things being said on X or IG or Facebook. And all this, by the way, stems from a TikTok live where a man for 15 years that I've known since I very first started doing journalism, that I've been rocking with boxing and everything, said some stuff on a TikTok live that just, whoa, I couldn't believe that I was in this space for Blacks for Trumps. And of course, you're going to hear things that don't fully understand when your political ideologies don't align. But this was other shit, bro. This wasn't politics, right? They were trying to talk about things, like why women aren't able to hold that kind of office. Why men are, this was just more biblical shit. This was just more like, I don't know, it was more sexism based than anything else, right? But before I get your take, I want you to understand that in my context, like I've been experiencing this past summer, hearing guys like, Charleston White or even Cam Newton's show, or whoever else express this. A lot of the guys from the comedians from Nick Cannon's show make very eloquent points about voting for Trump. This isn't about politics for a lot of the black community in terms of what has been going on in the past with Republicans. It's about what's been going on in the past with Democrats and how they have failed to secure the future that a lot of times over the past 3-4 decades they've claimed to have the best interest of. I hear them talk and I hear them say things like this. I mean, I wrote them down because to me they're very important. Trump gave us money. Trump gave us the stimmy checks. Listen, it had Trump's name on it. I mean, not only did it have Trump's name on it when he gave it, it had Trump's name on it when Biden sent them out. That's a huge dumb move on his part because now you have a whole bunch of people who work 40, 80 hours a week, 2-3 jobs, kids, schools, all that shit. And all you remember is the 3 names that were written on that check when you got them. Another thing, Black people starting small businesses. Trump opened up a lot of ability for these for communities, specifically Black communities, to start small businesses. They said freed a lot of low offense drug charges. People that should not be in prison today for marijuana or anything else like that are rotting away and have given their lives to the correctional, and he did help them. He freed Wayne, didn't he? He freed not Boosie. Who was it?
Kodak.
Kodak. He freed Kodak. So when I hear this, and then I see leftists, right, or liberals, I guess, whatever you want to call them, say that, oh well, this is a section of the community that's not informed. They're not educated. Yeah, motherfucker, because you've been fucking around with education for how long? You're mad now that the people who you think aren't educated on the topics, but they're educated on life and how it works. So I sit here today knowing that I can't vote for Trump. I can't. I'm an American, and he trying to steal an election is fucked up. Whether you understand what he did or not, it don't matter. That just disqualifies him for me. I'm not sitting here saying Harris is the best person for the job in all of the world, or all of America, I should say. I'm saying that you gave me 2 choices. One of them is the most un-American choice I can imagine, and the other person's a vice president. What am I going to blame her for? That fucking position has no power at all. I mean, what do you think of the things that I've said? How much have you been affected by this in terms of the rhetoric online? And yeah, just break it down for us, man.
So it's so many places to go, brother, because you let out a Freudian slip.
I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry.
No, listen. You let out a Freudian slip because you said for the world. And I think a lot of the perception, especially amongst men of color around the world, is not necessarily matriarchal. All right. So I think a lot of people have bought into this idea that, a woman can't run. And these are people that have grown up in single parent households, for better or for worse. But they have this idea that a woman can't run. They might have work. A supervisor at work, depending on the industry. Maybe not in blue collar, but certainly in office places and white collar where I've worked all my years as a professional. I rarely had male supervisors, so I don't, know what that says to, I just don't live in a world where I'm disqualifying a woman's ability because they're a woman. But globally, we still have to acknowledge that sort of idea exists, right? So let's put that out there. There are tons of people that have made themselves political science majors overnight that are saying they can't vote for a woman because around the world, a woman is perceived as such and such. So that's one angle, right? Yet another angle is this, and I gotta be 1,000% eloquent yet profane. The Democrats is like, yo, you're so poor and you're so destitute. I wish I can help you, but just stay right here. I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna see if I can be the one that can rescue you and help you and save you. Wait right here. Wait for me to bring you your salvation. A Republican gonna tell you, go fuck yourself. We all out here scrambling. Even at the top, I'm still scrambling. Get in where you fit in. And it almost relates to how people might prefer their racism. Up north, it's veiled. Down south, the Confederacy lets you know where a person stands such that you may have the aggression they have, and then they may appreciate that aggression, and then you guys end up relating in the fact that I don't fuck with you, and you don't fuck with me. But you know what? I respect you, and you respect me. That's how
Very
sometimes it
true.
goes.
Very, very true. Wow.
But up north in this Democrat, where are a lot of these Democrats from? Northeast Corridor. We just had a conversation behind the scenes about the bullshit going on in the Northeast Corridor,
Very
my
well.
friend.
Yes.
So these blue bloods in the Northeast Corridor, they always have it that they will be the ones that will usher you to your salvation and out of destitute and out of poverty. Poor brown man, poor black man, right? And then when they get one of us elevated in the party, you think that motherfucker ever leave the door cracked? No.
That's a very good point. Wow.
So it's a lot of reasons why, you can't necessarily hold yourself responsible for disregarding or losing faith in the Democratic Party. But
And beautifully said. Beautifully said. Seriously.
at the same time, no. And I'm with you. You never catch me voting for Trump. You know what I'm saying? It's too many Haitians that I love and respect and have grew up around. These, and if anything, this is fucking gangsters. How dare you disrespect Haitians and just lie on some punk white man shit and say they're eating people? Like this, they're eating cat, whatever the fuck kind of crazy shit. It's just like, let's be a little bit more educated about who it is that we're talking about, because you'd be surprised. It's so many affluent Haitians that they exist in the medical field as doctors and physicians and engineers. It's like you can't just go around being an idiot, insulting people, making up wise tales like the killer clown shit we grew up off as a kid. So I'd be an idiot if I'm voting for Trump. You know what I'm saying? His name was on a stimmy because at the same time you still got taxed doubly. So giving you the money up front for you to pay it back later. Again, I'll be on my gangster shit sometimes too. I don't need the money if you're going to tax me on the back end and fuck me over, but tell me you left a little bit of back door.
Oh, beautifully. I'm so glad you said that.
Nah, go ahead, get in there.
You just said that, and that wasn't a Freudian slip. You know why? Because you understand the way that works. You have the education on this, right? But you don't represent a large portion of black men in this country who have not had the ability to be educated, who have not had the opportunities to have the kind of jobs to educate them. So when you are in that, blue collar, job to job type of thing, hustling, trying to make the living, and all you see is this moment under the Trump administration where this money was given and trickled down. I can't remember, and I'm trying to remember who it was, and I know I have the video somewhere, but I pulled up way too many of them. One of the comedians from that Candace show had said it best, and he said it's something like that, where it's like, all you have is a bunch of hood dudes, or not all you have, but if you have a bunch of people working in the financial institution that is the hood, and the way that economic thing works, then you're seeing this money come from these checks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna front. You know what I'm saying? Like, my Mexican connect got a bunch of that money. You know what I mean? Like, I know he did. You know what I mean? He's hooking everybody up. So you're getting this money and it's flowing, whether it's flowing through proper channels or improper channels, according to the government. It was flowing. So that's the basis of what the education is for people living in the real world. And you're 21, 22, 23, and you're getting this money, and you didn't have, the history lessons. You don't know what was going on with the Bush administration and how they fucking did some of the craziest, most illegal things, ever done in a presidency. You don't know that, right? You're just going off of, how am I going to live today? Your words. Everywhere is the hood today. Your words.
Their Trump is my Clinton. And for many people of my generation, we ain't know how fucked up the Clintons were. But a lot of us, our families first came up. Families got their first house during the Clinton administration. Parents might have got good job, Clinton administration.
Facts.
We didn't understand what they were doing to the welfare system, social services, criminal justice. Didn't even see it coming.
Facts.
Didn't even see it coming. Mandatory minimums. We didn't see it coming, right? the way they were enforced. You know what I'm saying? Window police, creating the super predator. We didn't see any of it coming because all we saw was we were from the hood to Maplewood. We doing a little bit better, yada yada yada, and they shit went left for us in 2000 when Baby Bush got in office. So some blacks have been ingrained to feel like, damn, the only time we was up was remember when the Democrats was in. The only time we was up was when, and that's how this generation feels. They're looking when the Democrats wasn't doing shit, and they're looking to say, yo, I know one thing. When that $1,200 came, I went and bought a pack, and I was in the hood selling 3.5s. I had a little bit of money when that shit came in. You know what I'm
Yo,
saying?
that's too honest for him. I mean, listen to me right now. Listen to me right the fuck now. There is not a person running for president in the Democratic world or even close to it that would ever hop on a mic with you speaking that kind of stuff because it's not false. It's not false. You know what I'm saying? So here we are today where I remember that line. Fuck, who was it that said it? I'm not racist song, you remember? And he said something like, "Oh, we put Obama in and then y'all gave us Trump and that was payback for that." Right? But all these years later, it almost feels like is Trump actually payback for everything that didn't happen? You know what I mean? And again, I'm not trying to like skew these lines because again, I know who I'm voting for. I'm voting for Harris. I have no qualms with a woman voter, right? President. I have no qualms with a woman in charge. It resonates for me because I grew up around strong women and I was raised around strong women. And that's to me where my identity as a Hispanic, I've always correlated it with my friends that were black because we were all raised by our grandmas. There wasn't anybody that didn't spend a shit ton of time with their grandma. You know what I'm saying? And their moms were strong. My mom is strong. So it's hard for me to kind of like rectify how a generation of men who were raised by strong women and grandmothers, how can they be is the black Trump experience or the black voter for Trump experience just different, or is there something else there? I can't call it. I really can't.
I think it's like I said, it's years of now. Granted, there are people like, if we're gonna talk, Mario, we gotta talk, man, because there are people
Okay.
that are gonna say that the Obama administration. I'm going to disagree for a large part because first thing I'm going to say is, Mario, if I get myself in position and I'm tasked with bringing people on, the last thing they're going to allow me to do is to bring on another black guy right away. That's just the way it is for the sake of diversity. So I never saw. Oh, first of all, let me say that everybody should pay more attention to their local politics than the national scene. The national scene is smoke and mirrors. The impact that it has with Congress and the Senate and the figurehead they put in place, you got to kind of just see which special interest groups is in his or her pocket. That's what politics breaks down to.
Very well
The,
said.
so with Obama, going back to Obama, he had the Alphabet Gang was his special interest group and funders. Behind that was Hollywood, and you see how it played out because his Secretary of State, Rahm Emanuel and Ari Emanuel and the Emanuel family, they talk WWE. We can swing it to wrestling, can't we? So we can see how
Maybe everything in entertainment.
everything in entertainment. So we can see how these companies going for these DEOs and all these things. We can see how when you got the Alphabet Gang sponsoring you, you have to support Alphabet policies. So no way in my mind was I going to assume, and he did things, representatively, so my children can have aspirations and ambition, but his legislation was for the Alphabet Gang, not necessarily for me. And I could respect that and know the Democratic Party was on bullshit time, and that's what they were going to do. Now, when we bring it to candidate after that, that's what the Democrats do. We're going to run the understudy up under him with the assumption that blacks had a good experience. So what you have is a pillow princess during intimacy. You're giving me missionary. Democrats is giving you missionary, and they ain't giving you no bounce back. She might not even took her shirt off, Mungia. Missionary with her shirt on.
Yo, she got her socks on and everything.
And that's what we got.
Yeah.
That's what we got with Biden.
Champ, bro, you don't disappoint, big dog. You talk that real shit.
I
That
can't
shit
lie
ain't
to you,
gonna
man.
listen. I appreciate you not lying to me because I think where we are today with the black vote, with the Latinos, I'm gonna share a picture with you, bro. Listen, Staples in Lipes, right down the block from where I live. They had a big old Latinos for Trump sign, right? Overnight, my aunt sent me the picture. Overnight, somebody spray paint felon on that, right? I'm in a position where I'm seeing Hispanics for Trump. They're nothing like blacks for Trump. I thought, right? I thought. But here's the thing. When I look at it all, right, MAGA, I say to myself, for the vast majority of people, and we're not talking about people with serious mental illness that buy into, the far crazy stuff. I don't like really even engaging with them. I think they need help, you know what I mean? Mostly, and I feel bad for them. What I'm talking about is the people who I'm talking about the people who identify in a way, and look, it's like this, right? When you are MAGA, you're making money. That's just as simple. These guys are purporting all this stuff that makes zero sense. It's a money grab. That's all it's been. That's all it's ever been.
It's a
That's
brand.
what it is. These people that are YouTubers and they going live and every week. Look, this conversation all started because I was on a Blacks for Trump TikTok.
Mm.
The money is pouring in for MAGA. If I wanted to make money and that's all I wanted to do, I didn't want to have a serious show, I
You
would just
flip
go
it.
MAGA.
Go get a red hat.
I would
Start
go get a red
wilding.
hat and
Hmm.
start telling everybody, yo, them libs, they've been taking our money for years and they're aliens. And yo, they be having sex crazy stuff at Pizza Hut. Like, I would be saying all that, right? For money. So then is it okay to knock black folks for doing that? Why can't they have access to that hustle? But then I think to myself, like, well, then when you think about black education, you know that it is much different than, purportedly, right, to others. And then it's like, so then entertainment in any form can be a form of propaganda. Like, you don't, you know what I'm saying? So what do you think in that kind of way? Do black people deserve to make that money just like white folks make it off of MAGA?
And you've seen stores, I've seen stores open up in places like Virginia. Black people open up Blacks for Trump. They sell merchandise that includes white privilege cards and things of that nature, and they're making money. And I say to myself, which is worse? Which character is it worse to purport? Is it the Blacks for Trump, or is it a rapper? And I can ask that willfully because Trump is purporting to be a rapper. All these failed attempts on his life, literally bringing out Philly rappers that have been involved in the Philly drill scene, associating himself with the drill scene, and fake attempts on his life. Trump think he a fucking rapper.
Bro, like, over over the head. Holy shit. You know what? I was gonna listen to me. I'll show you my fucking notes right now. You know what I was gonna bring up to you?
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna bring that up to you. How I've heard so many blacks for Trump say that, yo, they call him racist. They call him racist, but guess what? He's been hanging out with rappers. He's been with rappers. Now, let's be honest. And they also say, oh, they only called him racist when he started running for politics. Not true. The Central Park Five thing,
Absolutely.
racism's been a long part of it. You know what I mean? So again, it's a breakdown in understanding the history of Trump, then getting to this point, right? But
Plus, with his
yo, the way
real
you
quick,
put it,
with his real estate policies,
holy shit. So
never
is
had
it
it.
all a game then? You think it's all a game
It's
then?
all a game. That's what I said. It's all a game. It's all a game. And if you pay attention to it, you can see from all sides it is entertainment. Now, the thing is, blacks can't afford to still be the like the just the liquidity, like the only the purchasers, no business. So I get that blacks for Trump have bought into entrepreneurship. But I'm like, damn, you ain't need Trump for that, you know. But he gave it to people in a plainer speak and made it feel closer. Because remember, in the rap game, everybody was rich, everybody's balling out. There is no struggle story,
For
right?
sure.
So Trump gives you the struggle story and then perhaps throws you a bone under the I feel so you feel like you're relating to the story of the come up. That's traditional rap. That's hip hop. That's the story, right?
Wow.
So you have people finding a way to relate to him. And then listen, you and I, especially me, I'm going to immediately say, yo, earliest memories of him is number one, Central Park 5, but also who didn't fight in Atlantic City at the Trump Plaza, and who that didn't have money, including Oprah Winfrey, didn't go to the Trump Plaza and see the fights. What presidentials,
Yo.
what dignitaries didn't go see Mike Tyson or didn't go see Larry Holmes at the Trump Plaza? What street element, gangsters, didn't go see at the fight at the Trump Plaza?
Wow. Wow, like, you're connecting so many different things that I feel like, holy shit, I should have seen that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been covering boxing as a journalist for 10 years. Like, you're right. You're right. You know, and the problem is that, like, I always assumed Trump was just like everyone else. You know, I'm going to be honest. And I want you to tell me if you disagree. I'm not so sure. In fact, I have a lot of doubts that Trump is a racist or even a sexist or a homophobe or transphobic. I honestly don't think he gives a shit about anybody. I don't think he has hate or love. I think he has one thing in his mind at all times: advancing the career and the power of Donald Trump. So if that means he has to kowtow to Mexicans or Asians or blacks or whites or whatever, he's going to do it, right? And whatever he got to say to get that vote, is it racist to say the things that you know will attract the kind of alt-right and you know, white supremacy vote? Yeah, it definitely is racist. You know what I'm saying? But he himself as an individual, where his moral stands, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if we know anything real about him.
Well, so here's the flip side. This is the dirty game. So when the Democrats say, "Oh yeah, you know what, Mister Racist, Haitians eating animals, we're gonna give all these Haitians voting rights, and for all the benefits and the money they've been getting, all the Venezuelans, they're gonna get voting rights, and oh yeah, you said that they're criminals. Yeah, these criminals are gonna be voting. Guess who they're gonna be voting for? The motherfuckers that just gave them money."
Mm.
But that's kind of still a stupid play, because what if they decide, yeah, you just got me here, dummy. I just ripped you off. I took the money and came out the other side of the building like they used to do uptown when you're going to pick up. Like,
Yo, that
you know what I'm
Amin
saying?
book is gonna be crazy one day.
They could flip and be like, yo,
Oh,
we got the money from you. I'm getting $13,000 in EBT benefits, SNAP benefits that working class families aren't getting. And I'm not voting for nobody. I ain't voting for no goddamn body. Like,
but at
think
the end
of
of the
the,
day, you understand that that's a narrative, right? And you can
yeah.
operate against it. So let me ask you this though. On your side of town, right? And obviously I mean the country, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in the, you know, south, you're in the East Coast. You are a man about town. You know, you have had your um business fingers in a lot of different types of platforms and stuff like that. So you have a general business and general people understanding. I've always felt that way from you. What are you seeing over there? Do you think that when November comes, we're going to see the turnout for Harris in your side of town that's obvious? Or is there a chance that the Trump train has landed there and is going to take over?
So what it has done, and again, it's the impact is not really on the national scale, it's on the local scale. So it's hit or miss. So think about it like this: the Trump candidates are running on the campaign of, we want to take back the jobs from the people that are taking, our jobs away, and we're not going to allow kitty litters in the school because people want to identify as cats. This is real shit. I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is what you're getting on the Trump side, kid. But so there are people that are gonna say, "Man, I ain't never met nobody that wanted to fucking be no cat, so I don't know what you talking about," right? Then you're gonna miss the people that are gonna say, "Yeah, the business policies is cool, but like, yo, this guy is he's just, I'm not racist like that." So he's missed the boat. But then the flip side is the other candidates on the Democratic side, they may be pushing too hard as, you know what, if my kid wants to go to school and identify as a male or a female, and the parents don't want to be the parents want to be informed, we're going to pass legislation that the kid doesn't even have to tell the parent that they're identifying as a different gender. So we're protecting this kid and his rights from his parents. So that's the Democrat. Like, they'll talk about the lesser of two evils and shit. Mario? What if I decide to just vote
You're
for the
not
black
wrong.
candidate? What if I decide to just vote for the black motherfucker because both of the white candidates are pushing too hard? Either I'm a Trump racist, or I'm a freaky dem. What you
Damn,
want me to
bro.
do? What do you want me to do? I really have to
Oh,
research the
wow.
candidates. I really have to research the candidates, because anybody that's pushing too hard on either side is a fucking fraud. They're
Uh,
doing it for, this is vote bait, not clickbait. This is vote
yes,
bait.
yes. Vote bait. Holy shit. I love that you said that, because that's what I was trying to think of. That is what this whole thing reminds me of. Like, how long were we kicking it with Ness, where we're trying to think of titles and topics for the show that's going to draw the most people in during the Manny Pacquiao Mayweather days, right? Like, we were there, and all of it was, I'm not saying it was all for money, right? We were trying to have fun and different shit, but it was a business, and
Mhm.
it is a business. At the end of the day, politics is a business. And so
Mhm.
when you put it that way, I want to clear this up. I know you're not saying like you're in this trap where you're seeing it this way or that way or whatever. You're saying this is the trap that America in its national spotlight falls into. And you're
Absolutely.
absolutely right, because you know what? I've never met a human being that wanted to be a dog or a cat. But I've seen a bunch on libs of TikTok.
Yeah,
She, and to purport like the word or the most farthest version of that, and then say, oh, well, you pick between us or that. And
that's
then to go on
crazy.
the other side, you know what I mean? It's the same thing, but ultimately, like, yo, how much of that shit really even affects people's day-to-day lives? Like that shit, fixing that shit ain't gonna fix my groceries. So
And
why
that's
do I care? Why do I care?
and that's
You know
what
what
I'm
I'm saying?
saying. When you lean too hard and say, "Yo, you can't even different can't be a difference of opinion. Different has to be that you embrace yourself being uncomfortable with the way I'm presenting myself." That's what the Dems are doing. And like I said, you got the Republican side of thing. They just found a hero to be racist. So it's people that, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, I'm pretty much a man about town, and I don't get no flack, but I find it that, depending on where you're at, you'll get a whisper and you'll say, yeah, man, because those, and I'm like, well, you know what I'm saying? Like those, like, yeah, I'm not really a those and us and them kind of guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm so glad you put it that way too, because when I think about all that, I do think it's important. Like, I don't want to like take people's actual fears and diminish them, right? I don't want to do that, but at the same time, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I'm American, bro. Like, I feel like whatever you want to do, that's on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if a person makes you mad because they want to be called Daniel instead of Daniela, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like, why the fuck do I give a fuck? I don't care. So
Could care
that to
less.
me it's a thing that just I'm always going to be on American rights. Always. I'm always going to be on for the rights of American. I am not, listen, I'm going to say this. I'm probably going to lose people at this point, but I'm not even for, like, me personally, if I cheated on my wife, something that would be the biggest mistake of my life, and I impregnated a girl, I would not want her to abort the baby. I don't think it should be my choice. And
Hey,
I don't
look.
think it should be America's choice. But I have my morals that I
Hmm.
will gladly teach my kids or try to pass on, but not try to hinder the rights of Americans because of my own inability to, sustain our bloodline. I don't even know how to say it.
And
Like,
listen,
I'm
Mr.
just, that's where I'm there.
Mr. Mungia, I can tell you on January 17th of 2009, it was the first day I began my master's degree program at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. But I can also tell you, Mr. Mungia, it was the very same day that I took a young lady to what we refer to as the chop shop, because this bitch didn't have a future, son. I just explained to you I was getting ready to start a master's program at a medical school. This bitch was a stripper. We went to get an abortion. I'm pro right like a motherfucker.
I'm pro right as well. Pro right, it will never be a thing I vote against ever in my life,
Yeah.
ever. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I think what you said is well said, because it shows the differences that we may see in terms of our own family's morals.
Hmm.
Your family's morals should have no impact on mine, nor mine on yours. But we can both agree that it should not be the right of our government at a
Absolutely
local
not.
level or at a state level or a national level. It should not be their choice. At the end of the day, I can't carry that kid, and the very act could kill me.
Absolutely.
Our woman, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, that is it. To me, that's it. But it goes back to the whole other aspect of this. Like, I'm an
Scare
American.
tactics. Scare
Scare
tactics.
tactics, yes, and that's the goes back to the dogs. It goes
Hmm.
back to the Venezuelans, I think, that were
Yeah,
taking over the
man.
apartments. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know why it's crazy too? I mean, you know why it's crazy? Because immigration's already an issue by itself, without making up any of this. You talked on this before the show. You talked on this a little bit now, and it's such a great point. You're talking about the strain of the welfare system that happens, right? And it happens because a lot of people are in need.
Hmm.
But this country has a threshold. Whether you understand it or not, financially, we do have a threshold. As we inch closer and closer, that's it. That's the biggest part of it. Do we need to send off every single immigrant? No, because we have no proof that that's going to do anything. Do we need to build a wall? No, because let me tell you, from Corpus Christi, Texas, that's not how they get in, bro. That's not how the worst of them get in. Stop it.
Yeah,
Stop it. Stop it. The worst of them already have phony fucking passports. The worst of them already got the people on the in ICE or on the state letting them in. Like, stop it, bro. Like, this is crazy. Y'all know a wall ain't gonna work. And by the way, a wall is an American to take that kind of property lines away from the people that have that stuff. Like, we just know the wall don't work. It don't work as an idea, and it doesn't work as a preventative measure.
and,
Okay, so ultimately, we know immigration is a problem. I would love to give the Republicans the benefit of the doubt. I would love to say, nah, they were the ones that were up on this first, not the Dems, but I can't, because you have a man who represents that party telling lies and bullshit to make this problem seem bigger. And by the way, he could have fixed it himself. He could have,
exactly.
or they could have fixed it already. He didn't want to fix immigration. He wanted to be the one that fixed immigration. That's just the truth, bro.
And so I don't think either one of them will do this either. And I don't think, we have to be rocket scientists or big political strategists to figure. I'm no David Axelrod, and all my political heads know who that is. But why don't either party stop being warmongers, right? Stop protecting, little I, and stop protecting big U. Cut both Israel and Ukraine off, mind your fucking business, and spend that money on us, then you wouldn't be crying about the money you're giving to Haitians and Venezuelans.
How much of the wars and the recent developments, I guess, or raising of the stakes, do you think will play into our national politics on November?
A lot, because again, look at where so the Democrats are pointing to, yo, the money is not there because why? Trump and blah 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 blah. But we're trying to fix it. We're trying to clean up the mess, right? But they've created a better quality of life for a bottom segment of people, but not the people that really could benefit, the middle class. So they
Hmm.
created a lower class, benefited the lives of that lower class, and say, hey, we're still doing our job as Democrats. We're still working for the little guys. Republic.
Um,
Go ahead.
wow. No, no, no. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, and then with the Republicans, again, the only thing you know about it is they ain't giving no fucking handout. So you better start stealing, create a business, a LLC, figure out how to finagle a bagel. But at least you know what you're dealing with. It's Squid Games with Republicans, and you gotta get it how you live, and that's the
Bro.
thing. So if they all make a big see no neither, and neither one of them have the balls to simply say, and that's, but Trump has been hanging his hat on that. Yeah, we're gonna end the war. We're gonna end the war, but he's trying to say it from a position as a strong man, instead of saying like, yo, we're wasting money. Neither one of them will say that, because they both need it as a ploy. They both plan on doing the same bullshit.
God damn it, dude. You are just too good at this. I listen, first of all, I want to say this real quick. I admire you so much for the knowledge that you have gained in your life. And I want to also say thank you for doing this show in such a short notice. You had told us an hour, and if at any point before that you got to rock out, do it. I want to let everybody know that while we are scheduled for another 20 minutes, if anybody wants to call in and talk, chop it up, you could do so with me. I mean, he's gonna bounce, but ultimately, bro, thank you, bro. This was a huge conversation. I think this is a lot of stuff to really go back and dissect that you said. Um, I do want to ask you though one other point here. It kind of goes back to the whole MAGA thing, right? You have voices like Charleston White and others that are extreme right, and I don't want to say anti-black. That's not what they are at all. If you really listen to them speak, they are anti-black culture in America and what it's become today, right? You have so many black voices that are very adamantly against these voices, right? But then you have other people who give them a stage, give them a platform. Where do you think the line is in terms of black politics and being able to exist in a spectrum from right to left? Is it a thing that you think could be as accepted as it is today. I mean, there have been so many right-wing pundits on the Daily Show and in liberal America. You're never going to see a guy like Charleston White on, those kinds of shows, right? Why is he so much more extreme versus a guy like Tucker? And again, I'm not trying to say that there is a racism or pattern there. I'm really honestly just asking what your thoughts are on it.
It's all in the delivery. Because think about it. If I sat up and I said, "Hey, y'all, I'm a Republican," right?
Yeah,
And I'm just being real, whether it's the bars or this thing right here, like you're gonna have to put a Tucker or a motherfucker up in there against me. You're gonna need somebody that's well versed, and don't let me
sure.
get a piece in my ear with somebody reading me points like them guys got, right?
Mm.
So I think the issue is with the approach and Charleston, like you explained, the marketing. He's black trumping. He's rambunctious. He's divisive. There's kernels of truth sprinkled in there. There's
Oof.
even some good logic in there, but ultimately, there's a lot of divisive conversation because their approach is only going to garner but so much support organically, so you have to be a lightning rod. So and I feel like when you say things, just some of his rhetoric, when it's like, yeah, fuck Nipsey, but we love Emerus. I don't mean to say his name, but you know what I'm saying, like no, because I'm saying, this is how far black culture is. Black don't have no culture, you know what I'm saying? This is just nonsense in hip-hop. You can say those things and be correct, but when you have to attack somebody in order to get the point across, then not only are you in a way like kind of feeding into what people hate worst about the culture of hip hop and blackness, that antagonism, that black on black. You
Mm.
can't do the black on black and then say, well, I'm doing it because I'm the better black. So now you like Sarge from a children's story. What do you want to be white, or you know what I'm saying? You Steven from Candyland? Like it can't be like that. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Yeah,
you can't join in on the rhetoric and say, well, I'm doing this to clean up what us blacks are doing. So I'm challenging us to be better, like a Jason Whitlock. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on,
absolutely.
that shit don't work. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Very, very well said. I want to read a couple of these comments real quick. Mental Health Mamacita said he is trying so hard with his sneakers and street cred. Yo, them gold sneakers were whack, bro. Like, I mean, if you're gonna try this, and I'll be honest, you just put this notion into my head, like in terms of me, rectifying and understanding it, and I see it. I really do. Like trying to build him as a rapper
Mhm.
almost, and the kind of support that has been given on that stage. I mean, you talk about like Tupac and Biggie, and they were criticized and harassed by our government and people during their tenures. Oh, but after they died, now you have political figure. Oh, they were, their words were uplifting and spirit, and yeah, they were the whole time. You were the hater. Like, I think ultimately what you have is this thing where I'm starting to see the pattern, right? And those sneakers definitely were part of it. But why don't you got like some person who's like, was in hip hop fashion or something, like designing your shit, like make it better. Don't got to be so tacky, is all I'm saying. Mama, mental health Mamacita says, claps for pro choice because no man gets their body regulated. Absolutely true. That's one of my biggest fears. Look, I don't think they'll ever, I'm not saying, oh, because there's abortion, there's going to be one day they're going to make me have a vasectomy. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that opens the door to taking uh just Americans, right? Americans come in, men, women, kids, babies, whatever, right? More of their rights away. Mental Health Mamacita says abortion is a way to keep the country against each other. Very, very well said. A lot of abortion is spoken in a way that it's religious in tone when the Bible makes no mention of abortion, nor does it gay marriage, by the way.
And that
But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's another thing too. You see a lot of the Trump side of things relying heavily on the Christian values and kind of these Midwestern values, all these old tropes. And then you see the libs and the Dems just flipping out, and they just got no regard, and they're referring to have no spiritual power, no power, no sort of enlightenedness. Oh, Sky Daddy and all these facetious ass comments. I'm like, y'all young motherfuckers ain't never have to duck no bullet, you punk motherfucker, because God is real. He nigga done saved me. So pardon me, but you know what I'm saying?
Nah,
Like,
I definitely agree. I listen. I have lost touch, or not lost touch. I have shed some of my re- organized religious idea. Oh, actually, a lot of them. Actually, most of them. But there's never been a point that I didn't believe in God.
There
Even
you go.
when I was mad at God and refused to consciously admit to myself that I believed in him. I didn't want to believe because I was that mad. I was that upset, and it comes down to me not being able to have kids today. Like I I I feel what I feel because and to use your terminology, I've been in the chop shop too. And did I say goodbye to the only chance I ever had? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But it ultimately could have also taken away whatever life the person has today. You know what I'm saying? Like if it wasn't the right time, and I believe that God is in charge of that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the idea that God can either be all knowing or either being all good or all powerful is something that's always resonated to me. But understanding physics and the way this world is built, I mean, I don't know, bro. It's hard to know the facts of science and think, holy shit, there has to be somebody designed this. Like there's too many coincidences to say that there isn't a grand designer. That's just where I'm at with it. So we have to be morally conscious of who we are. I don't think it's good to just be good because you think you don't want to go to hell, right? Real talk, there's this show, and you've put me up on a lot of like religion in my time, stuff about Judaism, what's it like for Muslims and going through certain parts of the year, Ramadan type stuff. You put me up on a lot, and I'll say this: over the years, I've learned a lot about Judaism that reflects today on just how you know what I mean? Like I've never gone to temple. Like I've gone to temple as a show respect to a friend. I've never gone to temple like to learn. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like organized religion can have an answer for a lot of people. You know what I mean? It really can. So it's not about judging that. It's about how these entities in politics use it to get their narrative, just like the other side
Hmm.
uses certain, low income things and to their narrative and their
Great
benefit. You know
point.
what I mean? But yeah, I just can't. It's just hard to rectify with what's definitely going on right now. Listen, we have 10 more minutes. It doesn't look like we have any calls at all. So I'm just going to kick it back to you in terms of the craziness going on with New York and the mayor.
Yeah, man.
Can you speak to it just a bit? What's it been like over there? I saw SNL taking some shots.
You know something? Like all things, man, politics. I don't Eric Adams is not the first black mayor of New York. David Dinkins had already done that. He's a Trenton, New Jersey native, but he's the first black mayor of New York. Um, so being the second guy, there's a lot less pressure. He had a good kind of prerequisite being NYPD. Southside Jamaica, Queens. He was a detective, rose through the ranks. I think he was a former chief. So prerequisite. He's very relatable and like, yo, New York. We come from Alabama, moved to New York as a kid, and all of this is important when it comes down to the accusations because, like I said before, people are gonna find some of that relatability and say, "Yo, he did some Southside shit." You know how it go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Home
do.
of 50 Cent and many others, right? Southside Jamaica, Queens, right? People are going, and so when he presented himself after the charges, and he's surrounded by, people that are law enforcement, union people, and black people, and then you got to figure the whole thing is about whomever the special interest group. Apparently, it's some people from Turkey. You know what I'm saying?
Whoa.
Bro, this is just politics. This is par for the course. And he's kind of like, um kind of flippant because he's again Bob Menendez, Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey, very famous Cuban American, with a great story. Come on, Mario, this nigga was taking gold bars. He was requesting to be paid in solid gold bars, a boob job for his wife, a Lexus from Ray Katina. This is gangsters. This is politics, man. This is what they do. So when you say what's going on, yeah, you hear about the indictments, but as in, politics, somebody's going to eat that charge for Adams. I don't think he sees, because there's so many layers and layers and layers in between to where um people have taken money. Somebody might have got, some charges dismissed, record expunged, some bread. It's something in the way it works in New York. Somebody might get sentenced for, 5, 6 years. Man, they'll be out in 14 months coming in a federal joint. They might be in Fort Dix, New Jersey. Like, it's nobody's going to be hard. Eric Adams ain't going to jail. I can tell you that much. That motherfucker's still wearing one earring. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think he's worried about, Mario?
Yo, listen, I think that it honestly, and I hate to put it this way because I feel like I'm trying to be protective of one group or one political party over the other. But
Mhm.
you look at what happened in North Carolina with the guy running for governor. Oh, what was his name? Shit. They got caught on Nude Africa and some other porn sites.
Yeah.
Look, this is supposed to be the group that is honest. We're too honest. We're so honest that we say things that you interpret as racist or whatever. And yet everything points to him have done it. Like, what I'm saying? Like, nobody's using Big Mouth Mike Breaker as their email or handle, right? That was mine from 20 years ago. If anybody else got that, like, raise your hand. That's cool. But I promise you, probably nobody else got that, and Mini Soldier or whatever the fuck. Like, that's it. Look, I'm not saying that he should be persecuted for being on porn or anything. I'm not trying to kink shame at all. But at the end of the day, like, it's
Be
who you are.
accountable.
Is to be accountable. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say in way too many words. Thank you. Be accountable, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna be real. You're gonna be your brand. Be real. You know what I mean? Like, and that's easier to say, right? Somebody, let's say I blow up live stream or pod one day, and somebody comes back like, "Yo, was this your comment on UJ's nice boob to nipple ratio?" Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna be embarrassed too. Like, yeah, I don't know why I was commenting on Pornhub. Like, that was a weird time in my life, but
They're going to be looking at all your comments on Viviana Winkler's page because okay.
oh
I'm not trying to out you, brother, but that's why I ain't in politics because
shit.
I'm just now getting in good graces with Alicia Bumgarner,
Hey,
respectfully.
bro. Hey, respectfully, bro. Hey, respectfully. She's a queen. Listen, we do have a call. I mean, it's about 5 minutes. If you want to wrap it
No,
up and
no,
give your
no. Let's.
you
I
good,
would
you
got to at
good?
least stay for the call. This will be,
Hell yeah, you the champ. You the
yeah, yeah.
champ. I think I know who this is anyway. Ash, what is going on? You are live. Why don't you give out you want to give out your TikTok real quick before you make your call?
Sure. Hi, Amin. I've heard so much about you. My
This is
TikTok
my
is
wife.
Hola.
hello. It's Ashley Smashley on TikTok.
At Ashley
No,
Smashley
no,
on
no.
TikTok.
It's Ashley
Oh,
Smashley.
at it's Ashley Smashley on TikTok.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, she's got a great mental health and women's empowerment social media, and the TikTok's been blowing up. She got her first um million watched video. So,
Doing
I don't
better
have
than
the clap
us.
thing put up.
Thank you,
uh
Menendez brothers. No, I'm just kidding.
Jesus. That's
That
the
went
first
far.
time anybody thanked
Sorry.
him. And listen, we talked about a lot of different things. So whatever you want your call to be on, just feel free.
Yeah, the one thing that I wanted to just kind of throw out there, what I found very interesting in the documentary we watched was about how abortion has essentially become the new form of segregation
Mm.
because the churches lost their tax break. They were not going to be allowed to discriminate against people of color anymore, and if they did, they would lose their tax break in the 60s. So they devised a plan, essentially, like, what else can we do to segregate people? And so they chose abortion, and they basically made it look, if you're for abortion, you're evil, and if you're not for abortion, then you're going to heaven and you're one of us, essentially. So it created a new type of segregation based on morals, which underhandedly, I mean, everything that they're trying to do underneath is all for, the white race, essentially, to keep the patriarchy. But I found that so interesting how you think of like these Trump supporters and you think they're dumb, but they're not. They're smart. They're very educated. They're very conniving. And so I just found that very
Whoa.
interesting.
Yeah, listen, I agree with a lot of what you said there. I remember the documentary. I don't remember the name, otherwise I'd give it out. But yeah, essentially what it was trying to say was that white nationalism was no longer in trend, I guess we can say. Too many people felt like, that racism was wrong, just pure and simple. So at the national level, they couldn't really run on that ticket anymore and expect to win, right? Because that was the narrative that separated what we think today as Republican Democrat. That's not really how it worked back then, though. It was more white and regional things. And then essentially what they said was, well, we could use Christian nationalism. And if you look at the transfer from those that were either in charge or directly working with the PR and media systems of the white nationalist party and organizations, many of them had transferred over to Christian nationalism. And again, this isn't me saying anything bad about Christians or anything like that, or religious organized religion. It's more about, it's just facts. It's just facts. That's all it is.
You know something, and thank you for that, Ashley, because I had no clue, but you just made me think of something, and unfortunately my mind reverts to some gangster shit.
I love it.
And I yeah, that not only that tax break, but if you no longer segregate religion and discriminate, I think it was also just like Lincoln was able to use, the Democratic Party or however that shit worked out. I think it's like, yo, them black churches got money in the motherfuckers. And even though that economic class has been, underpinned, they are loyal. So let us open up and allow these blacks, and Catholics did it first by making African bishops and shit. So it's like, yo, let them franchise a little bit of religion so we can get some of that money. But still in all, I think we're making the same point, is that people use systems and then they turn around and divide us, and then we're left to kind of find a bridge back to each other, because some of us do have
exactly,
our differences.
So beautifully said. Ash, thank you so much. You can stay on. I'll just put you on mute, and if you want to come back on for a call or anything, just unmute, and I'll know that you want to come back. I mean, I want to ask you real quick before you go. I learned something. If this isn't something you want to discuss right now, too, we don't have to. But just because I don't know if you heard this yet, I only heard it a couple days ago. I think I was listening to NPR or some sort of local public radio. The DOJ is going to go back and look at the Tulsa riots. They are going to put together a whatever, probably 200, 5,000, whatever page document, actually looking at the incident. And while they admit that there's probably nobody left alive to prosecute, this could be something that sets up some sort of reparations or some sort of, affirmative action is probably not the word to use, but something in that kind of vein. I want to ask you, I know you're obviously, about the Tulsa riots. In fact, if I remember correctly, one show that we did years ago, I think you were the person that introduced me to the idea of Black Wall Street and what it was. I had no idea about it back then. And even though I knew what the Tulsa riots were, I did not understand Black Wall Street. Knowing what you know about that and all these years later, do you think that the DOJ or that the government or America in general can find some sort of can put together a report that gives some sort of resolution or offer some help? Or is this just kind of like I can't remember the word for it. There's like a term for it where it's just kind of like a big nothing, like a big fat
dog and
burger.
pony show.
Exactly, like a dog and pony. Is this a dog and pony show, or can there be some real benefits gained from this kind of action?
I'll leave it. I'll leave on this before I give out my socials. I think that, number one, the case in California with Manhattan Beach, where the family was awarded their property back, that set a good precedent, I believe, for reparations. But I think it would be bolstered. And again, I'm totally for reparations. Give me mine. Talk about a stimmy check. Give me some motherfucking reparations. But suffice to say, I think the value and the long-term implications, sometimes like with a conviction in a criminal case, you can then approach a civil. I think if they can kind of put something on the books and show, Tulsa, and then maybe in what's the other one, Rosewood in Florida, and then you look at the case in California with Manhattan Beach, you now have a precedent at 2 or 3 different state levels that the feds have to now look at and say, well, you gave out reparations in 1941 to 44 to the Asians when you had them in internment camps. Why you ain't you allow Korean businesses to get those small business loans post internment, which then I guess the Asian Indians didn't benefit it because they didn't specify which Asians, right? You allowed Latinos and Puerto Ricans and even now Arabs to be a part of the bodega union, but not blacks. So my point is, there's lots of legislation that passes, but we haven't had anything where it could financially benefit black people, period. Now I don't want to get wrapped up in the FBA shit, but I think we just have to designate how and which group would be able to benefit off of long-term legislation that facilitated something like reparations or some sort of payment.
Damn, well said. Well said. Listen, I'm gonna go ahead and rock out for just a second before I give my outro. So go ahead, give your outros, and just so people know, if you want to follow me right this second, because he was such a great guest, and I think that would be a smart thing of you. You can go to the description in the YouTube and also in X and pretty much everywhere else. There's a description, and all of his social medias are there as well as his YouTube channel. But go ahead, I mean.
No, I just want to leave out of here on this one. This is one that's special for Texas, for Tejas, especially for Dallas, because Sharetta Metcalf, women's boxing is my thing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm obviously a boxing savant, but women's boxing is my thing. And Sharetta Metcalf out of Dallas, Texas, she is going to be challenging for the IBF title against Mia Yoshido. This is a rematch of their first fight. Metcalf won the first fight and was the IBF mandatory. Something happened along the way with sanctioning bodies, Ebony Bridges, and so on. But now we are back. This fight will be on Pro Box. They just got a television deal. And you guys just need to know and understand that women's boxing is boxing at a very high level. And if you want to know anything about women's boxing and you ain't following me, you don't know shit. So, Mr. Munguia, my brother, it's a pleasure. Ash smash. Keep your foot on the gas and your foot up their ass.
Yo, we left them with a bar, big dog. Yeah, listen, thank you so much. And you didn't give up the socials for the yeah.
Championship rounds right here on YouTube. Go and subscribe. King Amin of Essex 1 on Instagram. King Amin of Essex 1 on IG. And listen, you gotta have me back. This is high level sparring. This is high level sparring. This ain't that doghouse shit in the Mayweather gym. This is like Virgil Hunter and rest in peace Emmanuel Stewart guiding two fighters to a dance in the middle of the squared circle. And then thank you for having me, man.
Hey, I appreciate it as always. I appreciate the honesty, the realness. I'd rather do this conversation than talk with some of the people actually running for politics that really don't give you the real answers. You know what I'm saying? But hey, you go and continue to be the great dad you are, watching the kids. You know what I'm saying? But helping out in the background, you're the champ for that, for real, champ.
No, my brother, appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, big dog.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, y'all be good, man.
Yeah, listen, that was Amin. I want to just kind of take the time, Ash, if you're still on, you can definitely unmute yourself anytime you want. Awesome. Listen, I just want to take the time to real quick just recap some of the stuff that he talked about in terms of what it's like. He said something to me in our iMessage conversation yesterday where he had said that basically, like, there is some real, conversation here. And I think Amin and I very much had it.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was a great conversation.
That said, though, he believes that there is a portion of that, group, the Blacks for Trumps, that are just black incels. And you never think of it in that kind of sense, because you always think of, when you think of the term incel and the way it's used, you imagine a white guy and blah, 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 and these kind of factors. And it's really not fair. And I know it's funny or it seems weird to like defend like who can be an incel or not, but essentially it's kind of racist to not think of it in a sense where everybody is subjected to the same kind of propaganda.
I
You
mean,
know what I'm
every
saying?
group has a demographic of extremists. Like that's, I mean, where people are a spectrum in general. So it doesn't matter what it is we're really talking about. There is going to be someone at the very extreme end, no matter what demographic. I mean, Christianity and with, with religion too, you like that's basically what Al Qaeda was. You know what I mean? It was just people on very extreme ends of their religion. So
Absolutely.
it's not crazy to think that there are something called like black incels, you know.
Yeah. No, I think that he put a lot of first time ideas in my head, right? And I think of Trump and I think of the way that campaign is run over the last, I mean, almost 8 years now, right? Or wait, yeah, 8 years. Holy shit. Um, in that time, right? It's all been orchestrated and planned, and I didn't understand that as well as I do today, right? Back then, it was like, what did he say? Getting off the elevator and thinking, nah, he's against Mexicans, he's against my people, and I don't think he ever was. I think he was saying whatever he could to get elected. You
Yeah,
know,
definitely.
I think if Canadians were the problem, right, or whatever, or that polled well, he would be saying the same
He's
thing about
essentially
Canada.
a pick me girl. Like he's a pick me girl. Whatever his people
You
are
say
going to
you think Trump is
follow,
a pick me girl?
he's a pick
That's
me girl.
hilarious.
Whatever his demographic, whoever's going to vote for him, whatever they want, that's who he's going to attack. Whatever he feels is the opposition of them, that's who he's going to attack. I mean, this is just like us talking about the other day. You asked me the question about like if I think that there are going to be more Republican women if Trump says anything, bad about women that are going to come back around. We had this conversation where I said he's already done that, and there are a big chunk of Republican women who have turned to the Democratic Party at this point because they cannot tolerate where the women's rights have gone. Like they can't tolerate him anymore. But the women that are staying, those women are pick me girls and they have internalized misogyny. You know what I mean?
Do,
So it's kind of in that same vein. Like he is such a narcissist and he feeds off that energy of adoration that if they said that they hated orange fucking caterpillars, that's what he's going to talk shit about. Like that's just what it is. He's a pick me.
Very, very, very well said. But let me ask you one question though about what you just said. First out, shout out to Mikey Salazar, says hello from the live chat. Hello back to you, champ. I just want to remind everybody listening, if you're on X, IG, whatever you're on, please go to the YouTube. It's Soup or Mario Pod, all one word, Soup as in SOUP or Mario Pod, and hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, all that stuff. We're going live weekly plus podcast plan. On Tuesday, Ash and I will be hosting a show with former college player, former college coach, Polo Gutierrez, who's going to talk to us. We've been watching the Aaron Hernandez show, and it's shown us a lot about what the kids go through when they're, potential high draft picks in the NFL.
That was
And
crazy.
it was very crazy and eye-opening for both of us, even me, who's been a longtime fan, played football. And he's going to come on and give us a lot of his expertise, tell us what's bullshit, tell us what's even worse than we think. And so that's going to happen Tuesday. But I want to ask you real quick. You say they're pick me girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, I don't think that, I'm not saying you're wrong. Okay. From a truth point or factual point, I believe you believe that. And I believe you have rational reasoning to suggest that for many of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? However, the term pick me girl is an insult and it's used as an insult, right? And when we
Yes,
talk
you're
about
right.
Trump supporters who are pick me girls, you're talking about, and these are people who are actually pick me girls, right? I'm not just saying people who are trying to like run for office and better their own politics or whatever, which is completely different. But if you are considered a pick me girl, then you're considered a person who essentially is in a position where they are, I don't want to use the word abuse. That's not the right word, but perhaps they come from relationships that are a little uneven. Perhaps their men in their life
Well,
have
they're definitely they're
convinced
women
them
that
that,
are rooted in the patriarchy. They
okay, and is that their fault, do you think?
here, and you and I have had this discussion many times because my level of empathy for people, and I do have a certain level of empathy for people because of things that choices they've made at times where they didn't know better or they weren't educated. But at some point, you have to open your eyes. We live in the golden age of information. And if you're choosing to be ignorant, it's because you want to be ignorant. You have the internet. You can search anything. You can go anywhere and find anything you want. You can look up different opinions. You can do whatever you want. So I feel in this day and age, while I can have empathy for the fact that they grew up in this and they feel that they have to act this way because that's how they were raised, or they'll lose their friend, their family, or whatever. I don't have empathy for the fact that you're a grown ass adult who won't research anything.
Well said. Well said. Listen, it's hard for me as a man to say certain things because I feel like I'm attacking women for something that I don't believe is their fault in a lot of ways. Like if you are a kid and you're raised to believe something, right? And even if that something is wrong, it doesn't matter. Like it's their truth, and you have to acknowledge that to a degree. And so, and I say that to say this. I remember being a kid, right? And I played sports growing up. I played baseball. That was my sport. I was very short. So baseball allowed me the chance to compete on a level that I couldn't in basketball or football. And during that time, there were kids who would be made fun of, right? There were kids who would be ridiculed. And there were a lot of rumors that would be made up about them. And these kids, that the one thing they all had in common was a father who was a bit overly involved in their sports, from talking to the coach after practice or before practice to just showing up randomly and helping with the field. They were trying to score brownie points. They were trying to, get close to the coach, and it was all for the betterment of their child. These kids were ridiculed, mocked. They called them, DI suckers and all that kind of stuff, right? Very unfairly. At this point, I realized as a kid, as a man grown up all these years later, realizing that they were in that position. They had to go home every day in that life. And I'm not saying it's like abuse or anything, but ultimately, like they're being judged for a situation that was created by the people that created them. And so when you
Right.
see these women who have these beliefs that are deeply rooted, what's her name? The one that showed up in like
Pearl.
super no.
Oh.
No. God damn it. What's her name? The Super Trump
Oh,
uh
Lauren Boebert.
house rep. Not
Oh,
Lauren, the other
Marjorie
one
Taylor
that
Greene.
dressed, thank you, Green, Marjorie Taylor. Um like I see women like that, right? And they're not running for politics. And I think that their heart and their spirit and the enthusiasm comes from a place that's really deeply rooted in who they are and how they grew up. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's
Understood, but
tough,
at
dude.
some point you become a grown ass adult and you have to that's where self-evaluation comes in. And and that, and obviously this is going to get like a little, I guess, religious or spiritual, if you want to call it. But that's why I feel like there was a line that Jesus said repeatedly in the Bible, that he said, for those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Not everyone is going to wake up. And I feel like we're in this age now where we can really see who is willing to hear and who is willing to listen and who is willing to not listen. And so
That's
I have found myself over these last few years having less empathy for grown ass adults.
wow. Yeah, that's fair. I think what you're saying. I think that what I look at it though, right? Like, mm, and you know what sucks is I didn't even get to play any of those things for Amin, but you sent me a lot of content from TikTok on the idea of blacks for Trumps, Latinos for Trumps, women for Trumps, all of these kinds of different things. And they say things like, oh, well, Trump was never called racist until he got into politics. Not true. Oh, well, Trump runs the country like a businessman and he's trying to get rid of the swamp. Not true. He tried to put his own swamp in there, and it was filled with the kind of businessmen that have been, ruining our country and all that. So when I look at it, I see it and I see to myself, wait a minute, is this based on their responsibility as adults to grow up and figure out what's true and what's not, and understand the baity nature of politics from both sides, or is this my privilege? And while I would have loved to have a child, and while I think you would be the best mom I could imagine, and I would wake up every day trying to be the best father I could be. I can tell you that while I don't have the privilege of kids and it hurts, I do have the privilege of not having kids. And what I mean by that is where I don't have to wake up in the morning to get kids ready for school, when I don't have to think about picking kids up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or for after school or 6:30 because they have tiger or a drill team or football or baseball, whatever. I spend that time listening to podcasts. I spend that time reading these books. They're not just for show. I spend my time educating myself on the things that I find interesting, and I find a lot of stuff interesting. So I guess it goes back to what I'm trying to ask you is, are we at times as a parentless married couple not aware of the privileges that we have because of society that tells us that we're wrong for not having kids?
I'm fully aware of the privilege we have, and especially on the mornings where we get to wake up slow and easy. And I understand that. And obviously have friends that have kids, and I have seen and been around how hard that is. But at the same time, I've seen my friends, single moms, that are educating themselves, because they want better for their kids. Maybe they're going back to school, they're going this. You make time for the things that you feel are important, even if it's outside of your children. So a lot of this, though, with them, I feel is rooted in fear, right? And I heard you and Amin talking about that. They really want to set up this whole show about how your kids are just they're not gonna be able to do anything or be anything, and everything's gonna be crazy. And so it's easier to cling on to those statements than it is to do your own research. Okay. But
Well said.
again, if it's something that's really important to you, if you really want to be self-aware, if you really want to break outside of the bubble, then you make the conscious effort to do so. So again, like I'm saying, like while I can have empathy for people and where they've come from and how they were raised and all those things, I have ceased to have empathy for grown adults who should know better by now, and they have the tools to use it and they don't use it. And I'm not talking about like in every life situation, but even specifically in politics, where we're constantly shown what's lies and what's not, and people refuse to believe the truth.
Well said. Well said. I want to ask you this though. Okay. And this is the beauty of having your wife call into your show, is that you and I are married. You and I have been married since the pandemic. Um and
Before, hello.
well, I meant before. No,
I'm
I
just
meant during the
kidding.
pandemic. um Okay, I've said this already during the show, and I'm going to say it again. I am voting for Harris. I am voting for Harris, and when you want to talk about policy and all that, we can talk about it. I don't mind talking about it, and I can have that discussion. However, I don't need to have it from my perspective as a voter, because it comes down to one simple thing for me. Trump committed one of the most un-American things you can commit in attempting to steal the election. Now, I'm not saying that he went and rigged voting machines or any of the crazy shit he suggested. What I am saying, though, is that the
He attempted
document,
a
the
coup
200
to overthrow
overthrow the
what
government.
we elected.
Destiny has covered it very well over the summer. But what we received this past week was that 200 and blah 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 page, report, and it shows clearly that Trump attempted to steal this election. That's it. That's it. That's all it is for me, because I don't want that bullshit from January 6th again. It's not about blame. It's not about, anything anymore. I just don't want it. I just don't want it. I'm not saying I can't ever vote Republican again. I'm not saying there aren't some Republicans that I wouldn't voted for, right?
You're just not feeling their vibe right now.
I'm not. In fact, there's a Republican from Ohio that was running during the 2006 or 15 trying to beat out Trump. And I'll tell you what, I would have voted for that guy. And I'll probably vote for that guy today. So it's not even Trump's fault that I don't want to vote for Republicans. It's the Republicans' fault for sticking to a guy who is clearly un-American. And in 30, 40 years, when all this MAGA stuff has kind of died down and we can just look at things from a factual perspective, it is going to be considered one of the worst things that anyone in office could have ever done. It really is. I
Yeah,
don't think
it
people
is.
understand
I totally agree.
that said though, my love, that said though, I know that you'll be honest when I ask you this question. And I know that you know what I'm talking about. We had more money when Trump was in office. Is that not true?
Sure.
And is it not true that both of us were financially independent to the point where together we were living a really, really great life. Vacations all the time, constantly out of town. New gifts for me, new gifts for you, new gifts for our fur babies. We even adopted some stray cats. We were giving out so much fucking food. Today, that is not the scenario. Now, I know as a person without kids and a person with an education that jobs, the financial stability of our country, none of it really comes down to Trump or Biden being that much different. In fact, the numbers suggest that financially, because of the COVID, because of the pandemic, we're not so different. You know what I mean? And so when I think about people that don't have the ability to look into the policies and look into the propaganda, I think back on, well, if you're just going off of which life was better then or better now, can you really blame Trump voters? Can you blame people for voting for Trump when that is their experience?
No, I mean, I guess you can't blame them in a sense because ignorance is bliss, so to speak. But it's kind of set up in a way. Our whole. Let me just go conspiracy at you. Our whole education is even set up in a way where you don't even know that the president isn't responsible for inflation. It's the companies that are responsible for their pricing, and the president has
Great point.
nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
But
and they don't know anything about vice presidents either and what they can
either
do.
like people don't know what our government does and doesn't do. So when that type of lack of education is ingrained in people, it is very easy to manipulate them and let and say, and then that's when they can say, well, that president's, this was horrible and this, and then they don't realize either that what we're living in is Trump's economy. When we were in 2020, that was Biden's economy. I mean, sorry, that was Obama's economy. We live in the economy of the preceding president. This is Trump's economy. This is based on his tax breaks and everything. So to suggest that what you're currently living in right now is Biden's fault is crazy. And to suggest that picking Trump is going to be better for the middle class or for America is even doubly crazy. But again, they use propaganda and tactics for those people that are ignorant, and they paint a picture for them of how life's going to be better. And so then they don't pay attention to policies. They don't pay attention to the fact that there's going to be tariffs, and they don't pay attention to the fact that the rich are going to continue to get tax breaks, and that they want to take away overtime, and they want to compensate you with vacation time instead, and like all of these crazy things. But because of our education system, and because lack of education and high propaganda equal a way to create followers, that's
Mm,
exactly what's happened.
well said. Yeah, you gave me a lot to think about right there. Listen, again, I don't, I feel like sometimes people will hear me speak and think like, oh, he's a flip flopper or he's just a middle of the fence guy. I'm not. I'm not. I'm really not. I have very firm beliefs. The whole point of this conversation for me is to try to, as Amin put it so eloquently earlier in the show, is find that bridge back, right? I come from a mostly Democratic family who belongs to a much wider Democratic family. I have a family that has voted mostly together for the entire time that I can remember, the last 30 years. So when I think about that, I think about how ingrained I am into the idea of liberal and democratic propaganda. Now, I'm not saying that Democrats and Republicans are the same in terms of policy and things like that, but it's all gamesmanship. You know what I mean? And when I look at what Obama actually did, and what he didn't do, um, I can understand why there are a lot of Black Americans that felt like he left them behind, like he didn't really do what he could have. But then it goes back to understanding how much he was stopped by
Exactly how the government
Republicans.
actually works. Yeah.
Exactly. So then when it comes down to me trying to pick somebody to be the president, again, we can talk about policy, but policy, we know, first of all, Trump's barely ran on any policy. Any policy he has put forward has been almost a major fail in terms of, in terms of like commercially, right? The wall. I'm just going to use that as an example. but nobody ever talks about it. Like his
No.
supporters don't really care about it, right? So policy clearly doesn't matter in that sense. Um, it doesn't matter like the way that you get the vote essentially for either side. And so I'm sitting here today realizing that I have a narrative, and that narrative is it skews in favor of liberals and Democrats. And I'm trying to keep myself as open-minded as I can, because I very much believe that, unlike what is purported out there, that the vast majority of Trump supporters, I don't think they are a bunch of racists. I don't think they are a bunch of transphobes or homophobes. I really don't. I think that there are honest people who have been sucked into this QAnon MAGA world that they can't get out of. And they think that the liberal media and CNN and MSNBC and Hollywood are all in on it, because they kind of are, because they do support the Democratic narrative of, free love and peace and all that kind of stuff. At least that's what it is on brand. Now, what are their actual policies and things that they have been able to accomplish shown? It goes back to the same thing. Democrats and Republicans working together. So when I vote this November, I'm going to vote for the person that I think can reach out to the other side of the aisle. And no, I don't think Harris is going to have many friends in the Republican side of the GOP. Of course not. But I do think that she has more friends in the GOP than Trump has friends in the Democratic Party, in the independent side of the of this whole thing. And he has less, I think, Republican support than most people even realize.
The other part of that is he doesn't care to have relationships. He doesn't
Well, he
want
cares to have relationships that benefit him or that
exactly
purport him to be the best,
And that's the one thing
I'm the
that people
greatest.
don't
That was a
I feel
terrible
like
Trump
people miss the
impression.
most about Trump, or that they're blinded by the most. He is like the narcissistic boyfriend that you think you're in love with, and even though he keeps doing crappy things, you keep going back and you think he's perfect because he has this confidence. But he is only for himself. At the end of the day, every single thing that he's doing in office is to benefit him and his family. That
Yeah.
is it. He cares about no one else. I don't even think he would have taken this. Sometimes I feel like Donald Trump doesn't even actually want to be running for president, and honestly regrets it. Because did he want all of this for everything that he got? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to know. If he lives another 5-10 years after this, if he's freaking sane, and not going senile yet, like, I want to know, was it worth it? Like, did you get what you were promised out of it? Because I don't
That's
think that he was.
that's another great point. Whether, I mean, you said, and I know you're just making the point, so it wasn't like an actual comment, but you're saying like whether he's going senile or not. Honestly, it's so crazy to me. That's the other aspect of this. You had
He's so
both
old.
Republicans and Democrats admitting Biden was way too old and sounded, what's the
Senile. It
word?
sounded
Like,
like he had
yes,
dementia.
but in a way that you couldn't argue it. What's the word? Like where it's undeniable, like, and so you had that happen, right? And then Biden gets ousted. But Trump has shown the same kind of, cognitive, not dysfunction. That's not the
Well, if
right
he can
word, but
continue
like
to raise his
decline, I
eyebrows
guess.
and throw an insult in there, they think he's still going.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, that sounds like the same old Trump. So he's, there's nothing wrong. But I mean,
He
you can
rambles about
play a
stuff. You have no
soundbite.
idea what he's talking about.
You can listen, for all the people that talk about his rallies and stuff. Look, I've never been. Okay, I have been to a rally. I haven't been to a rally since he was running for president the first time. What I can tell you though is that it does seem like there is a difference from what I experienced myself and saw at that time to today. Right? If you hear a 10-second, 30-second, even 2-3 minute clip of him, it is very different than hearing 2-3 hours of speech. Okay.
Exactly.
And no one can tell me that there isn't very, very close similarities to the cognitive decline that we were seeing in Biden. By the way, Biden still did a lot of great stuff. That's the other part
Exactly.
about it. And so when you talk about these things, again, it goes back to it like, I'm not at least in here busting down the door saying, Harris is going to be the best president ever. She deserves it. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that Donald Trump doesn't get along with anybody. And for a president to be able to be effective, he has to reach across the aisle and help make things or help get things done. Like, this isn't to say that Republican policies don't work or that socialism and capitalism,
They're not at a
one
point where
is
they can create amicable relationships to get things done with the other party. It's like you can't, it's like
very well
leaving
said.
the other parent out when you're trying to co-parent. Like, what's the point
Ooh,
anymore? Like,
yikes.
they
That
can't
was a
co-parent
very good
us.
metaphor.
If he's in
Very, very
charge, if
good
he's the main
metaphor.
parent, like, it's going to be hell. But if she's the main parent, it's going to be different.
Oof, man, that was a great point. I think really, really great point. How do you, in a system, in an American democratic system that is set up to have a co-parent? Now they call it checks and balances and stuff, right?
It's
But
co-parenting.
it's essentially co-parenting the nation, right? And Trump cannot co-parent at all, at all.
Nope.
And I can't imagine anyone who would rationally believe that he's the kind of guy that should get all and final say so, right? And it's a team, obviously. Like no president has ever sat in that chair and not had a dozen or more, voices in his head and ideas and stuff, you know what I mean? And helping to come up to the best answer. But ultimately, it is that person, the president's decision, and when you can't work across the aisle, there are very few decisions you can make. Many people don't realize how much Obama tried to change in those first 4 years and how much he was met with um,
Opposition.
opposition.
Yep.
It really, really was. Man, it was a crazy time, but you look at it now and it feels like it's all just a reflection of it, right? It's all
Yeah.
just continuity.
And I
Listen, we're
feel
gonna,
like this
huh?
has come full circle, though. So I'll just say one more thing. I feel like
No, go ahead.
this
Whatever you want.
election season and Harris, running and all of this has really been able to bring, I think, even the Republican Party or members of the Republican Party full circle in a sense to where they can actually see now, okay, like we were blind following this guy, but like, man, it's crazy. Like, what are we actually going to get done for the American people? You
Exactly.
know? And
Yeah,
so I
you
feel
have like
like
5 crazy people on your side in the
exactly.
Congress
So
and
it's
Senate, like
really weeded out, who is actually for the American people and who isn't. And I think that's the start. And I'm not talking about Trump supporters, I'm talking about the
in
politicians
general.
themselves.
In general,
Just the
yes.
politicians. Like the
Did you s
politicians that are still with Trump, they don't give a rat's ass about us. They don't.
Oh, that's a great
Because
point.
he doesn't.
That's a great point. I wanna ask you though, the Democrats have really started pushing this, narrative and this line, and, it is country over party. And obviously they didn't make that up, right? This is a
Right.
very old, saying, but they're pushing this narrative now more than ever because the idea is essentially like, it's not that like I'm old enough and I hope educated enough to understand that socialism and capitalism within America, they have to coexist, right? You cannot
Exactly.
be all capitalistic, that would not be fair, and you can't be all socialistic, not because socialism is inherently evil. You look at the definition, there's nowhere it says it's evil. It's because the people that have been in charge of those types of things have been corruptible. You know what I mean? Like we
Right.
see that in other countries and stuff. So it's not to say that one side is better than the other or anything like that. Not yet. That's not
You'd
this
have to have
conversation. We
the
can have that
perfect
conversation.
environment,
Sure,
for that and the
absolutely,
right type
absolutely,
of leaders. It has to be
absolutely.
a different world, honestly.
So then you ask yourself what separates them enough to vote. And I think it comes down to those two things. One of them committed one of the most un-American acts in political history, and the other has been the vice president. Like, you know what I mean? Like to say, oh, she was the border czar, like look, I would fucking love, love, love to give the Republicans all of the credit in the world for being ahead of that, issue. I would love to sit here and say, no, Dems, you
But
try to
they did
play
nothing and they
political
blocked it
bullshit. And,
so
but
Trump could
then
run on
what
it.
exactly? But then what happens? We get all the way to here, and the Dems finally see the numbers and they're like, oh, holy shit, America cannot sustain this. That's true. Okay, let's do something. But because the Dems were going to do something, the Republicans didn't want it, or at least specific Republicans, and Trump himself didn't want it. So that's it. That's it. It's over.
That's
That's
what I'm
it.
saying.
You
Like,
don't
they're
really
not
care
for
about
the
immigration.
American
You don't
people.
really care about the point because it's real. And you know what? I'll tell you one more thing too before we get out. Election fraud is real too,
Yeah.
by the way. Now, it doesn't exist in the form of Biden changing fucking, tickets or ballots inside a machine or some crazy, hacker going in there from anonymous. Like, that's not what it is. But what we learned is that there is a lot of information that is put into the system that is not factually correct. In fact, there's a lot of things that happen. Like, for example, the birthdays. Like, they talked about how many people voted that were over the age of like 200 or something crazy like that. But what it really came down to was that
It
these
was
people
clerical
were,
errors.
it was a clerical error. They didn't have a birthday really written, or the computer couldn't read it well enough, so that it throws in something crazy like 1800 or 1900
Well,
or
like
1850.
it'll default to like there are ones
Exactly.
that will default to like 1900. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But it goes to the point that Trump wasn't wrong. This whole thing that he raised, there is an issue with our um with our election system and things. It's not about it being capable for a million immigrants and undocumented people to vote. That's not what it is. You were lying about a lot of that shit. I mean, some of it's true, of course, but not nearly enough to make it a case for stolen or try to go to the, Supreme Court
It's
with
not
it.
on this scale to warrant the fear mongering.
Exactly. But there is a reason to have concern. So again, the point I make is that if Trump was authentically trying to fix this system, which it is in need of fixing, then he would be focused on the actual issues. And the actual issues are that human beings aren't designed to do clerical work like that over and over in a repetitive nature. You're going to eventually write down the wrong name or birthday or number or whatever, or address, or it doesn't matter, but you are going to do that, and then there was like this other thing about having dual citizenship in certain counties, and look, there are issues throughout our voting system. None of them point to mass fraud in the sense of one side or the other taking advantage. What it points to is that we need a system that can handle um the crazy amount of entry and data that goes into our systems. And by the way, like, Trump's idea to fix it was to take away all of our American rights. He asked every single state to basically give the information of every registered voter, how they voted, how they've been voting, what they refer to themselves as, whether they're aligned with Republican or Democrat, all of that kind of information, birthdays. That shit is bullshit. You don't get to have that. You find another way. We're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I
Oh,
mean,
I don't
that's
even know if that
essentially
works for
what
that,
they
but
want with Project 2025 too, is, and that's for women to track their pregnancies. Why do you need all of that information? Like what are you trying to really do with all of that information? That makes me suspect, because it makes me feel like, okay, if they do win and they do know all of this information, like, are they going to start coming for people that aren't aligned with Republican and don't want to be aligned with Republican? Is this going to turn into a Handmaid's Gilead situation where you
mm,
have to be honorable and loyal, otherwise you're gone? Like that, we're American citizens and we have privacy for a reason. You know what I
mm,
mean? And it
well said.
there should be no political party that has that much information on us and wants that much information on us to be able to see how we're going to vote and to sway our vote. And that's,
Well
to
said.
me, it's what are you going to do with the information? That's the scariest part. And we know what he would do with that information.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We went to Fiesta, Texas this summer and took a vacation, and we won a trip. We won a trip. It's one of those timeshare things where you got to show up for an hour or something and blah blah, right? But we won, and Ash and I are going to go on a trip, and it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to have to give some personal information to this place. I'm going to have to give information that I wouldn't typically give to just anybody. But the quid pro quo that I get back into this is that we get to take a vacation, right? And I'm sure I'm going to get emails and text messages about timeshares and blah, blah, blah for the next decade or more, but I get something out of it. Okay. For me to give up that kind of information to a Donald Trump presidency, or what's it called? Like his office, and have them try to
Yes,
track certain aspects of it, like, for what? Because I don't know, because I don't believe you now that you wanted to fix the actual issues with our voting system. I believe you wanted to fix a way that made it that you were now the president. And that, to
exactly.
me, like, I have no loyalty to Donald Trump. My loyalty is to the person that can and will make the kinds of changes that make most, or the vast majority of people's lives better. That's a very tall ask. It's not fair to have VP Harris be the person to do that. It's not even fair to have Trump, but only one of them keeps telling you that vote for me and the world is going to be better and your lives are going to be better. You're never going to have to vote again because America's just going to be fucking great. You had 4 years and now you're saying that what you did that was so great could just be undone in like days, because that's what you said. You said, oh, immediately Biden did this, and when he came out, first
He
100 days he did
contradicts
that.
himself constantly. He
All the
makes no
time,
sense. He
all the
makes
time.
no
So
sense.
unless I want Trump to be the president, unless I have some sort of bias that makes me want to believe, then I can't see another reason. And to me, it all comes down to this one aspect: ego. You don't want to be wrong. You know, I see this in boxing a lot. And I know there's not a lot of people that watch boxing today as Americans, but what I can't explain as far as it goes is that, you know, you see guys like Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather, right? And you grew up and you love them, and this nostalgia about them tells you, oh, they're the best. And then you see them prove you right. But then they get old, you know, and then they're clearly not the same. But you still have this belief that they are who they are, and you don't want to be wrong. You think about every time you debated any person and they made you feel wrong about your ideas and beliefs. So you fight even harder and you double down. And that's what this feels like with the Trumps, you know, with the campaign. You got a JD Vance who I don't even fucking know if I know anything real about him anymore. And I don't even know if that's his fault all the way, but it partly is for sure. Trump is Trump. You know, Harris is Harris too. You know, look, you and I both believe that she was against, or that she put a lot of people in prison
and we
for
found out that was a
marijuana, and it was
lie.
all bullshit, but we believed it. Two
Yeah, we
people who were
believed it
willing to
too.
have a female president, that have no problems voting for a person. I don't care if she's black or
And that's the thing. We're
Indian or
all
whatever.
susceptible to propaganda. And I think that
Exactly.
that's
We
part
both
of
believe
what
that
the
that
Democratic
Venezuelans were
Party,
taking over the apartment buildings the
yeah,
day
like
it
I think
happened.
that's part of what the Democratic Party fails to see about themselves too, is like, don't check yourself before don't wreck yourself before you check yourself. Like, y'all have been subject to propaganda too, just like we have. Like, we all are. Like, as humans, like, we want to believe what we want to believe, and we want to believe
Well
what the
said.
crowd believes. We
Well
want to
said.
believe what this our
That
parents are.
vindication, that backup.
Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so to sit there and constantly, like, I feel sorry. I say I have no empathy for Trump people. When I say that, I mean is when it comes down to me, at the core of it is I can't align myself with people that don't care about other people and don't care about policies that take things away from your fellow Americans. Like, I don't. That's not something I can vibe with. And
Yeah.
but there is a part of me that I feel like, and then this may be ugly and condescending, but I feel like pobrecito, like they don't know any better. Like, they have been stuck in this matrix of propaganda. You know what I mean? And it's hard to see out of that. And I know, because I was in it at one time too, just as you were. We all are. It's so easy for us to do it. So, I don't know. It's just a weird time right now. Yeah, that's really how I
Yeah.
feel about it.
I,
I'm really
I-
ready for it to be over, to tell you the truth. We
exactly.
saw today
Exactly.
32 days, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like,
Yeah,
we need to
exactly. And
know.
see, beautifully said. I will say one thing before I make the point. I think maybe the problem is you spent too much time around my dad, because it sounds like you sounded like him trying to mijo me, like whenever I do
Hito,
something
hito,
from
hito.
Hito, let me show you how. I'm like, Dad, I'm 40 years old and I've cooked barbecue for the last 20 years. I think I know what I'm
No,
doing,
you haven't. You're
but it
12. You're
doesn't matter.
learning.
Exactly. Listen, I want to say this one last thing though. When it all comes down to it, right? We've talked about JD Vance briefly. We talked about Trump the whole show almost. Harris briefly, a little more, but it comes down to Waltz to me. Like, Tim
I love
Waltz,
that
he
guy.
he just seems like a normal
And
person.
he
Like,
is a
yeah, you
normal
can try
person.
to, come up with all this crazy shit, policy wise that he's done, but like, it's no different than any other politician trying to get inroads with groups. And you know what I mean? Like, that guy doesn't understand the plight of trans people, and he doesn't have to. But what he can be
But he
is
has empathy
American and
for their
supporting and
specific
empathy for people.
needs.
Sure, absolutely. But when it comes down to it, he just seems like a regular guy. You know what I
Yeah. I
mean?
mean,
Like
he
my
doesn't
uncles
even
or my
own any
dad or
stocks.
my grandpa. Exactly. It's like this guy is like, he just he has a relationship with his family. It looks like they probably talk at dinner. And I'm not trying to judge at all, but that
But how can
resonates
you
with
say
me
that
from a family.
you're the party of family, and then we look at your families and none of y'all have
Well, we look
families
at
like that
Trump
man's family?
specifically, right? I
He has
was
had
on a
3 wives.
and
He
you
has
know, it's
3
funny you
baby
say that.
mamas.
During lunch, I was on a was it I don't remember who it was. At this point they all blur together. It was oh, it was Luke Beasley, I think. No, no, no. Who's that other guy on TikTok that we watched? The young white kid?
Oh,
Liam?
sorry.
No.
What is his name? What is his
I
Harry? No,
forget. Yeah, Harry.
Harry. Yeah.
Yeah. Harry something. I forgot. Anyway, he had a live going on earlier and they had this woman who was on and it was so funny. And I wish I would have recorded, like, I wish you could just like clip some of that stuff without them doing it first. But anyway, okay, so they were talking and she was a Trump voter, right? And she said, you know, why would I vote for Harris? She is a homewrecker. And they were bringing up the Judge Joe Brown stuff, which I'm not going to get into because it's crazy shit. And they were bringing up the artificial picture that has been created with her and Diddy out there. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
Willie
And that
Montel that
thing
she
is
was with, and
everywhere.
it's everywhere, and they believe it. And she
It's
brought
so
this up.
fake. You can tell how fake it is
It's
too.
so fake. They want to believe it is the issue, right?
Exactly.
And so this woman's saying, "Oh, she's a homewrecker, and look at her with Diddy, and blah blah." And so Harry and some of the other callers were like, "Whoa, wait. First of all, that picture was fake." I think he ended up showing the real picture, and you can clearly tell it was doctored. And then he said something else about it, and then he said, "But wait, I want to make a point real quick. You're calling her a homewrecker, but Trump is known. We know that he cheated on every single wife he's had. We know this. He has how many different baby moms, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. And I don't think Harry was saying that either. I think what he was making was like, why are you holding this
You're
against
being a
one candidate?
hypocrite.
Exactly. Why are you saying this again? And then you know what her response was? You know what her response was?
What?
Take a guess.
Well, he's a man.
No, her response was, well, why does that even matter? This bitch brought it up,
So then why
right?
does it matter?
This
Again,
bitch
you're
brought
right.
it
Why
up.
does it matter?
This bitch brought it up. But I will say the one thing I didn't like is you could tell she was very drunk. You could tell she was pretty drunk and slurring her words, saying a lot of things, and it felt like they were just kind of like trolling her. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I get it. She's very misinformed. She needs to be educated before making a potential bad mistake. Not saying voting for Trump is a mistake for any one person, right? I'm just saying that if she knew some of the things that she doesn't know clearly, would she still vote for him? So that's more the point what I'm making. And yet she's drunk. She's saying things
Right.
that, you know,
Like,
based on probably being
yeah, and that's
hurt and,
and that's
you
the
know,
thing
so
that
it's
that
hard. It's
people do
hard.
on both sides is they
Yes,
want
both
to
sides
make
do
the
it.
other
Yes.
party look dumber than they are,
As
or they
bad as
want
they
to take
can.
advantage of their vulnerable moments to be like, haha, see, I told
Or the
you.
people on the furthest side of the spectrum.
Exactly. And that's a way to prove their point. It's a fallacy, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Again,
right.
like I said, I'm ready for it to be over. I'm ready to. I mean, I really feel like Harris is going to win. Harris Walls, 2024. I really feel like she's going to win. But again, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not
The numbers.
confident at
But you know
all.
what I am more excited for than anything though is for Ted Cruz to be gone. I mean, I care about our government, but I care about my state more than I care about
Sure, I
my
get that.
federal government.
I will say this.
Especially if Trump's going to be president, because I, if the states are going to have more control, then, obviously we want a better state government.
Yes, very, very good point. I will say this before we get out. I've said a lot about, the national stage in terms of where I stand. I believe a lot of things that have been said about Trump are false or either not really or blown up, sensationalized. But I think that Harris is the person I'm voting. I know Harris is the person I'm voting for the things that I've mentioned, right? So all I'm trying to say is if you're voting for a Republican president come November, as opposed to voting for Donald Trump, I can kind of understand. I can kind of empathize, or not empathize, but I can kind of understand where you're coming from, right? Being a lifelong Republican stuff. I think it's the wrong choice. I think you're picking party over country, but I can understand that. If you are in Texas and you are voting for Ted Cruz, you're a moron. I'm not saying
Oh,
you're a moron
ugh.
because you're dumb. I'm saying you're very, very uneducated on what he has done and hasn't done. He has
And
not
how
done
many
a
times he
lot.
abandoned
He has
us.
sold us out so many times. So this is how little I believe in Ted Cruz at this point, who I voted for. I want this to be very, very clear. I'm not some Democrat who's up here saying, I vote for Allred because he blah, blah. I didn't know who Allred was. I really didn't. Coming into last year, no idea who he was. I knew he was going to be the guy. When we figured out he was going to be the guy, I started to look a little bit more, right? But not nearly enough. Because at this point, it just can't be Ted Cruz. I would vote for another Republican over Ted
Oh, it's
Cruz.
the same thing with Greg Abbott. Like it can't be
Greg
him.
Abbott, same thing. Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott are two people that have absolutely done a shitty job. This is not a reflection of Republican policy. If you're calling up here and
It's a
saying
reflection of two
Republicans need to be in
politicians who
charge in
take
Texas,
kickbacks and they
yes,
happen to
look,
be Republicans.
exactly. Look, ultimately, I think that everybody has the right to vote for who they want, and that's clear. But if you are voting for Ted Cruz come November, I'm not saying this about any other Republican candidate, by the way. I am saying this specifically for Ted Cruz and for those of us that live in Texas. If you are voting for Ted Cruz, you are voting against Texas. You are voting for the idea that a person can be elected, not fight for Texans. And like we don't even have to get into the fact that he's just like a bitch, right? Like he doesn't remind me of Texas. I mean, I know he's not really from Texas, right? But he doesn't remind me of a Texan. Like I'm a Texan, right? If a man that I'm running for in office or I'm trying to get a job over or something in school, whatever, says something about my dad, I might not punch you in the fucking face, but I'm never going to fucking trust you. I'll never shake your hand. I'll never say anything because I respect my dad. If you say something about my brother, if you say something about my wife, I probably will hit you. But ultimately, you can say all that stuff. I'm not going to get mad. I'm not. I'll find a point to not forgive, maybe, but forget, or the other way around. But I'll never trust you. I'll never fuck with
Exactly.
you. I'll never do it. And that to me is the least Texas thing about him is
Mm-hmm.
that Trump made him his bitch and then he bowed down to him all because he wanted to keep his position. He saw where the Republican votes were trending and he tried to get on board and he's doubled down ever since. His podcast is just nothing but lies. He has never atoned for any of the bullshit. And ultimately, he's not fighting for us, not anymore. I mean, when you
No.
look at the, when you look at the infrastructure bill coming down and all the things that he's done and said, like he's just so fucking fake. He is the fakest politician out there. And like I said, I'd vote for Republicans in Texas. I would, and I have before, and I voted for Ted Cruz. I'll never do it again. I will if you are voting for Ted Cruz, there's only two ways I think about you. One, I feel very bad that you haven't had the ability to educate yourself on how much he's failed our state. And two, you're just trying to get your money, or you're just trying to raise your profile, you're just trying to stay on brand, or you're just trying to raise your career. And that's okay. I'm not mad. We all do it, but you're a fucking sellout and you don't give a shit about Texas. And that's just the truth.
Exactly.
I'm not saying you have to agree with everything Allred said, but who's really for immigration? Allred is. You know why? You know why Allred's for immigration? Because he's been saying that shit. He's been on that tip. Democrats didn't even want to fuck with him for a while because he was on that tip. You know who's not on that tip? Ted Cruz. You know why? Because he didn't want to fix
No,
immigration.
because
He
Ted
wanted
Cruz
Donald Trump
already
to
he
fix
already is having
immigration.
his pockets lined. There are already people that are giving him money. Like it's time for us to give someone new a chance, Republican or Democrat.
Anyone knew. Anyone knew.
Anyone new. It's the same
Anyone
thing
knew
with
at this
Greg
point.
Abbott. Just anyone new is what we need,
And these guys have so much power and they have so much influence and they have so much money from the grossest people that have very, very
Exactly.
little representation for us Texans, real Texans. I'm not talking Hispanic. I'm not talking black. I'm not
Talking
talking
about people
white.
that live here
I'm
in
talking
Texas, in
Texas.
this state.
Exactly. It's different here. We're built different here. And I'm sure they're built different in New York and Cali and Florida, wherever the fuck else, right? But Texas is built different. And when you represent us, right, we expect something. Bro, Cruz is not who we expect. Not at all.
No,
That's not
not
at
at all.
all what I expected. He has sold us under
Now
the
Jasmine
river.
Crockett, that's a little different. We need that energy
Yeah,
going on.
she's bad.
The
Listen,
6B energy.
ultimately, yeah, she had look, and again, like the representation of what she has for her community in terms of Houston and her delegates, I mean, right? Or not delegates, her constituents, I meant. That's her thing, right? Ted Cruz affects us all, and our decision to
Exactly.
keep
And
him
that's the
in.
thing that stinks the
That's it.
most.
There's only
Yeah.
2 people voting for Cruz this November, and it is the people looking to build their careers further, or it is the people uneducated on the truth. This
Yep.
isn't about voting Democrat. This is about showing Ted Cruz and Texas Republicans that we are not on that bullshit. The
Too
same
many
people
of
that are
us
trying,
froze. Too many of us, had
fuck yeah.
experience of power
He didn't do shit
outages.
to try to fix
Like,
that
it's
shit. He doesn't
crazy.
give a fuck. And all he's done is work against every narrative that could help further us. You don't want to believe in climate change. You don't want to believe in all this stuff that you consider, leftist science or whatever. Fine. That's okay. But there are real issues happening. Come to the coastline. Come to Corpus Christi. Come to the island. Let's see if fucking climate change ain't real for those people. People that have been voting Republican their whole lives are like, holy shit, I'm about to lose my fucking house that's worth $1 million on the coastline of, the Gulf Coast. And it is what it is ultimately, but you could do something about it. You
We
could
could.
not
Let's
vote
end
for
on
Ted Cruz.
a lighter note. Tonight we're actually in a couple of hours we're gonna go see
I'm
the
so
new
glad
Joker
you brought
movie.
this up. I'm so glad you brought this up. I love that you brought that up. You are the champion co-host. Thank you. Yeah, I wore the Batman shirt and I meant to mention it to Amin too. But yeah, you think we're gonna get as good a movie as the first one?
I don't know. I've seen now the review that I saw wasn't spoilers, but essentially they're like, if you want to sit through a movie about police brutality, then like that's what it is. And they were like, it's kind of funny
Wow.
because people said that the first movie was very incel vibey, and this one's just
Very
about him getting his ass beat all the time. But I don't know. I mean, I'm excited, and you and I are usually, I don't want to say like be like, like weird and be like, oh, we're so different. But because you're a writer and because I, study the patterns of humans, we
mental health
see movies
behavior.
a little bit differently at times. And
Great point.
so yeah, I'm excited to watch it and to, see what it's all about and see what, hidden messages or anything like that or underneath
We
all of it. You know how we do.
we both love the first one. We
Yes.
both
Oh,
love the first
I
one.
love the first one. I
It
could
was
watch
so
it all the
powerful.
time.
We got to see it in theaters opening weekend. I remember when none of us knew what to expect. It was weird because when you think about it off the back of Heath Ledger's performance, it kind of took us to a new place in
Exactly.
comic book lore and how it's perceived on movies. And I think without the Dark Knight trilogy and without specifically Heath Ledger's performance, it wouldn't have opened the door to this awesome franchise that we're getting now. The Penguin has been really good on Sundays. I love all this. Like that's kind of, I think, what DC has done well now, right? They started to realize that where they really hit the mark is in the villain territory. When you
Mm-hmm.
talk about Marvel, you got guys like Captain America and Thor and Black Panther and Iron Man, and there's just a whole list of faces or good guys, I guess, that you can look to, right? But when you look at DC, the most interesting characters are usually the villains. And that's true across the board for most things, fiction and literature. But I don't know, there's something special about DC villains. And do you think that the musical thing could be whacked tonight? Do you think that could take away from the story itself? Or do you think it
I
could
mean,
add to it?
maybe, especially for, it's funny because I want to say those incel comic book, fans. It might be something that's very like, out of the element, but I don't know. It's one of those things where we're just gonna have to wait and see. I mean, I think there
Yeah.
was one movie where you were like, this is a musical. I was like, no, it's not. You're like, yes, it is. A musical is defined as XYZ. I don't remember what you told me. So
Mhm.
maybe it won't be like a traditional musical where
Great point. Great point.
everything singing and all that stuff, what I believed musicals were. But
Sure.
maybe it's a very standard musical where there's just going to be certain interludes of music, you know what I mean, and dancing. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I really am. We'll leave it there. Ash, you want to give out your TikTok
Yep.
and social
So my
medias if you
TikTok
want?
is at it's Ashley Smashley, and you can find me there. That's my main social media
Awesome.
right now.
Awesome. Listen, everybody, we are or this has been Soup or Mario. I want to invite everybody that's listening, anybody listening on playback too. Tuesday, we're going to have Polo Gutierrez, who's a former college collegiate football player and coach, talk to us about what's it like, preparing to go into the NFL draft. What is it like for college players? College is super hot right now. We're going to talk about pay to play. We're going to talk about the introduction of gambling into apps and how what kind of effect it's had on the college level. And this is going to be a great, awesome guest because this is a guy who played football at a time before all these changes happened. He played football at a time where we very, very first got some of the very first NCAA games. And then he was a coach during that era too. And now all these years later, everything that's happened, he's going to be able to, talk to us. And this is all going to be on the backdrop of the Aaron Hernandez show that has been streaming on Hulu, from on FX, but on Hulu. And I think it's 4 or 5 episodes deep now. We've watched them all. The last episode is what gave us the idea to have Polo on as a guest because it showed the pressures and the stress on players. They have to have mental exams, exams that test their educational prowesses. All this aside from the physical stuff, right? Put the physical stuff aside. They have these tactics and gambits while they're interviewing guys. It'll be like, did you get along with your mom? And what did your dad do for a living? And your brother, what does he do today? Have you ever had sex with a cat? And it's just to throw these guys off and see where they are mentally. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that ultimately, it is what it is. Wait, what the heck? Streaming currently disconnected. Fucking bullshit. Okay, so anyway, that's gonna be Tuesday, 6:00, I think is the time, Central. So 7 Eastern. Tune in for that. That show is going to be called Purse Full of Snacks, but you can watch right here on this channel, Soup or Mario. If you've been watching on X, IG, Facebook, anywhere that we are live, please go to the YouTube. It's Soup or Mario, SOUPOR Mario Pod. That's all one word, Super Mario Pod. And that is the channel. Please click the like, or the subscribe. Really, really helps. We're trying to build this channel up, and we are going live weekly with podcasts thrown in the middle. So until next time, appreciate everybody rocking out. And thank you especially to Amin for coming through and kicking that real shit. Shout out to Mikey Salazar in the chat. And thank you, baby, for rocking out with me. You are the best. Peace.